Welcome to the topic custom views. Let's see how to build custom views using SwiftUI framework and how to make that custom view a reusable view so that in our application wherever is required and this reusable view can be plugged in. And also we see that how data bind between the reusable view and the view that plugged in the reusable view, and see that how data flows between, how to control the data flow between the reusable view and that parent view. This is the example of the custom view, and this custom view functionality is we can input the currency amount with a currency sign, and it has got one more view that to display the error message, and divider. Initially the divider is a full divider. When I start editing that, and this will be half divider. So this functionality is a custom view, and we will make all this, incorporate all this functionality in one view, and that is a custom view. And the custom view is reusable view, and wherever it is required in application that can be plugged in. So this reusable view, a custom reusable view, I'm using it here. It is plugged in two places. One is for to edit the principal amount, and another is to edit the deduction amount. So I set it as a 10,000 and 100,000 and cell limit, and that can have maximum that, and this deduction amount can be and so when it is both are valid amounts, and this will be enabled. If it is one of these is not valid, and then that this will be disabled. So this is the data flow between how data flow between the reusable views, and let's see it now. So this is the text with this error message is related to the functionality of the screen, but the error text is in the custom view, inside the custom view. So how to set the data, how to when the validation function for this amount is related to this screen functionality, and that is not depend on this custom view, but custom view sets this text on that screen. So how to pass this, how to pass this data to this custom view, and when these two are valid amounts, and then only it is enable this button. So that, so we get the flags, we need to get that, control the data, and then get this control the data between the screen and then these reusable views, and accordingly this enable this. So let's see this, how to build this, and how we will share, how the model will be shared between the views, and how model will be shared between the reusable view and a screen that plugged in this reusable. Let's see it now. and this custom view has got three. One is the text field to input this currency value, and then the float amount of that in with dollar symbol, and another is to display error message, and another is that divider. So divider initially that will be full divider, and then it can be set to the off divider. So there is here one is this text field, and the data is controlled by the SwiftUI framework. So the SwiftUI framework, and it binds to source of the truth and view which is sets on the screen. And when there is a change, when user entered the text, and the source of truth will be reflected, and here it is the binding to this actual source of the truth. That is the source of truth will be in this screen functionality, uh, that some calculation screen, and that is the source of the truth. And so because that screen plugged in this reusable view, so it does the two-way binding. So when there is a change in the model, it sets on the screen. When there is a change in the input, and it sets on the model. So that is the two-way binding. So another is that this is when model changes and the view gets reflected. And when model changes, it either of depend on that flag, it sets the divider with padding, or divider with a padding 16. So this is the model driven. So when model changes and view get refreshed, so this and these model driven changes, this model is the source of truth for these views, and one is error and then a divider. So when model changes, and these behavior of these views will be changed. So that's why I define that model, and then this model is observable object, and when there is a change to this object, and then these properties that these are property publishers, and when there is a it publish the values. So when a model changes, and this view will get refreshed. So here this is the functionality which we want to share it to the parent view. One is the set error, and set full divider, and set off divider. This functionality can be used by this reusable custom view, and that means that this text in custom view itself, we can set this, whether it is set the full divider or set the error message, and this functionality can be used by this view, and also this can be set by that parent view which plugged in this custom view. So whenever there is a change in the model, and the change can be initiated by this reusable view, or it can be set by this the this screen, and depends on the screen functionality, it can change that model. So this is the observed object, and that is the model, and the the fields which is annotated with the observed object. And whenever there is a change in that model, and it it will be observed, and these are the observers of that model. So here itself the source of truth here is that here I am instantiating that model, so that model instance I am passing through that, passing to this reusable view, and through the view model parameter and reusable view, I define the view model as observed object. So this is the observers of the model, and this reusable view observes this model, and also this screen that plugged in the reusable view also observed this. But the instance which is shared between the both reusable view and this view and this view which plugged in this view is shared the same instance. So when there is a change in the model, set by this screen, or when there is a change in the model set by this reusable view, and these view model will get sends to this both observers. So when you sends to this observer, and that refresh the view accordingly. So first functionality we will look at this is that this functionality is shared between the parent view and child view, set full divider and set off divider. So when to set full divider, initially that set to the true and it is the full. So when users start editing, and this test set to the off divider. So that is this on edit changed closure will be executed by the Swift framework when user begin editing that text field. So on that we can supply the closure, and that closure is the functions set off divider. Now this view itself is setting the changing the model and calling the set off divider. So and when there is a off divided true, and this publishes the value, and that published value will be, since it is observing this object by this view, and wherever this thus that publishers is bind to the view, and those views will be refreshed. So this view will be refreshed with the new values published. So this is off divider, so it is setting that off divider. So in this way we expose this function to the parent view also. These set full divider, set off divider, now it can be set by parent view too if it is required based on the screen functionality, because the both reference to the same instance. So whenever there is a change, it this observed object also it will get notified, and that observed reusable observed the object also get notified. So this functionality is shared, but right now this functionality is only is being used by this custom view. So when it comes to setter, so validation criteria is depending on the screen functionality. It is nothing to do with this reusable view. Reusable is completely independent of that, and this is what validation it is. If it is principal amount and different type of validation, if I plugged in some other screen functionality which has completely different functionality, and that validation criteria is different. So validation criteria is completely related to this screen. So that validation criteria, so that validation function, and I'm passing it to that reusable view, and there is a defined validate function, and this is passing from that parent, and this validation function must be executed when user pressed enter. That is on commit closure will be called when user pressed enter on that text field. So on the text field, on commit function will be called, and the validation function which is set by this parent will be executed. So this validation function is completely is depending on this screen functionality. So that's why I add that as extension function to this screen, to this view, and then so that limit validation function. So I validate amount because this is the source of truth. The source of truth for principal amount text field is the principal amount. The state variable, this is the source of truth for that principal amount. And I'm getting the reference to the model which is shared between parent and child, and that is model. So now I have the source of truth for that amount, and I have the model which shares the functionality between the views. So I use that both, as got the instance of the both here. And then so principal amount greater than 10, then what I do is that I call the set error method on that view model, which is bind to that principal amount. So when set error method is called, and if it is empty, initially it is set to the empty, and each time user pressed enter and initially set to the empty, and if there is error message will be set. So empty is a valid, so I am setting as a valid. If it is not empty, false. And this error, it sets the error and it sets the valid or not. So this error published, because this model is observed by this reusable view. So when there is a change in the view and when published that error, and that view will be refreshed with the error message. So in the same way for deduction amount, and it sets the error, on that sets the error, it sets the error as well as it published the valid or not. Now this screen functionality is that when both emits the true, then only to enable it. So we need to observe these publishers, we need to subscribe to these publishers, a property publishers valid amount, we need to subscribe to this valid amount publisher of the both principal and deduct amount. So that we subscribe on the button using that on receive. So on receive is we give the publisher, we combine these two publishers, and it performs this function. When any of the publisher emits the value, and this performs this function, and here it is setting depends on that depends on these flags, and this is setting. I'm calling this is a function. Okay, so this is function I am calling as a defined as extension function of this this view, screen view. And this, if it is true, it will set this principal and deduction amount valid, otherwise true. And this is a state variable, and this state, it binds to that all views which has got reference to this state. So the button and disable property is bind to that. When it is false, it will be disabled. When it is true, it will be enabled. So this is the basics about this, how the share the functionality between child view and parent view. And this functionality is a model which observes by the which this is the model. When there is a change to the model, and those observed objects will be uh, will be notified. So it both parent and child refers to the same instance. So when there is a change to the model, either by this reusable view or by screen, and that will be observed by the both source. If anything, here it is, and here using this reference we are setting the error. So we are changing the model, and when the model changes and it refreshes. So this is the basic functionality of this custom views. And this custom views uh, can be added to the Xcode library, and that will be, you need to implement this protocol, not this. Services, and this we need to implement this protocol and then pass this so that it is available in Xcode library, and it can be dragged whichever way, whichever the screen it is required this to be plugged in. Thank you.